I was always into film and cinema, and initially I thought that's where I wanted to go. But I just took up the paintbrush and went with it really, and just really used my influences from cinema, I think. As a child, it was like, so I lived next to a suburban estate, and I always felt a bit uncomfortable going there, rightly or wrongly, whether that was my own sort of hang-ups or paranoias. But it was also, there's also a sense of excitement of it was sort of being somewhere where you're not really welcome. I painted the facade of 3 suburban houses and got to know the people who lived in those houses, and went in and did 3 paintings of the interiors of their house. So it was sort of a close-up of an object. So this is show home 3 brackets interior 3. Yeah, so I go into the house and I ask, can I take lots of photos of lots of things around your house? And so I didn't always immediately know this is what I'm going to do the painting from. So when I sort of invite myself into these houses, I sort of ask permission, can I wander around and just take photos of what's in your house? And my aim always was to have an object close up, it's like a small object to focus on, and then a larger object, and then a full room scene almost. So this was so this has gone down to a small object, which so the occupant was pleased that I chose this, because this was something that she had inherited from her nan that had passed away. So it was quite, so for her, me choosing it seemed quite poignant, but for me it was obviously I wasn't aware of that poignancy for her. For me it's just like almost like a trinket. I was hoping to see some sort of something more individual of what was going on inside the house of these. So from the facade, they all look very similar. I wanted to find an individual story, even though the people the residents of those homes, I didn't want that to actually be in the paintings. I wanted the interiors to give a story of who they were that were in there, might give an indication of taste, politics, sense of the individual and who they were. Yeah. So this is show home 3, interior 2 brackets. So while I was in there, so they let me play around with their furniture a bit and place it where I wanted to. So this was just a leather armchair in the corner. So hopefully your eye is being drawn from the diagonals and the vertical down into the crumpled seat. So you get maybe an idea of who sat in there, or your mind sort of starts thinking about who is sat there for hours on end, possibly peeking through their curtains. Your imagination starts to wander, and you do start to think about what is going on. You see these people sort of most days and you don't really know what's going on in their lives, but you get a slight glimpse and then you your mind starts to wander. People trying to work out what is going on behind the facade. I'm quite happy for people to bring their own baggage to what their interpretation is what's happening. So I made these paintings for a specific show, and the show was called Show Home. So this painting is called Show Home 1 brackets exterior. So this was my granddad's bungalow. So the last few years of his life, this is where he lived, which is a new experience for me, painting houses. So I was aware of what went on inside. Previously, all the other houses I'm quite detached from. Whether I've always been interested in that or not, I don't know. It is that sort of what's going on behind closed doors. I think is something I've always been interested in. Other lives being lived. So yeah, so this was the kitchen table in my granddad's bungalow. So when he died, it was almost like a blank canvas. I could go in there and I could move stuff around. There'd always be stuff on his table, obviously cups and mugs and stuff, and sort of there's a little vase of lavender. He'd have a photo of my nan on the table as well, and so I was able to actually construct what was going on in the painting. And the playing around with the perspective of it, I had just watched The Tenant by Roman Polanski, and there's a scene in there which really stuck with me. It's a dream sequence where there's it's almost like the room is shrinking, objects are becoming larger, so it's quite a frightening scene. The idea of playing around with perspective, and for me, I'm sort of usually quite straight on and quite it all makes sense. It felt right at this point to just sort of play around with it and almost like make it almost a dream painting. That psychogeography sort of idea, I think houses probably do develop personalities. So yeah, so this is Show Home 1 Interior 1 brackets. So yeah, so this was my granddad's bedroom. So in the photo that I took, there was his bed would have been here. So that's been edited out. The pictures that he had on the wall were in this configuration, almost face-like, 2 eyes and a nose, which I was drawn to and wanted to keep in. And his chair there that was beside his bed. So I think my nan is in one of the photos, and the other two were prints of. I mean, my grandparents liked going on coach trips to Scotland, and there were lots of photos of them sort of walking over the hills and stuff like that. And yeah, that was obviously what he was drawn to. I mean, he grew up in East London. His dad was a rag and bone man. I don't know how much of he saw outside of the East End until he joined the army. It was in the Second World War. So I'm interested in sort of the facade and the void behind, the space behind, and where that can take our imagination. And obviously our imagination is influenced by our own histories and our own baggage. I use photography. I go out the early hours in the morning and I sort of photograph houses. I choose houses that I like the look of, and so I picked out a few houses and I just put a note through their door saying, would it be okay to paint your house and the inside of your house? I didn't get a lot of take up. I originally I put loads through lots of different houses, and I got two yeses, And I got the last one, I just put a shout out on Facebook, and an old friend from school, she said that she'd do it, and it was a suitable house, so yeah. So this is Show Home 3 Interior 1, brackets. So this is a different house to the previous one, which obviously, because this has stairs, the previous one was a bungalow. This is actually the interior of a house of a friend who I hadn't seen for decades. What is going on up the stairs? Yeah, and that's where your mind wanders, hopefully, and in the room next door. So obviously the colours as well, I'm playing around with the colours, which doors are closed, which doors are open. I do edit my paintings quite a lot, so I will there will be parts that I will choose to leave in there. There will be bits that I leave out. So so there was a few pictures and mirrors on the wall. So the only one I left in was the mirror perched directly above the understairs cupboard. I wonder what you can see in it. So maybe art is an aid to your own internal monologue, and it takes you somewhere else other than what you're doing day to day. It's something for you, for your mind to wander and take you away from any possible mundanity that's going on, that is a constant in your life. I think suburbia has become a bit of a motif for me. So it's more a comment. So my work is possibly talking about now is more talking about othering. So this painting is called Urizen's Rest. So this is a bit of a departure for me. It's like a start of a new project. So Urizen is the god that's in famous William Blake painting, Ancient of Days. So the god sitting in the flaming disc, pointing down to compass-like to below. So the idea behind this sort of new project is I'm going to be producing paintings for all the gods that were in Europe of prophecy, and basically this is where they've all gone to retire on this suburban estate. They're fed up and bored with human trials and dramas. I grew up in a household that was interested in, we were all in CND, we would go on marches. The threat of nuclear catastrophe was always an ever-present and fear of mine growing up. Threatening objects hovering in the sky is sort of, got to think about whether it's, is it a natural disaster or is it a man-made, man-influenced disaster threatening the occupants below is an obvious interpretation. So this is house number 17. So in 2016 I started making these more sculptural pieces, houses specifically, to hang on the wall, to exist on its own. So you can approach, I mean, even though there's not, it might be a blank colour, I wanted the viewer to be able to approach it from different angles and to experience each angle as a new way of experiencing the painting. So it can be looked at from all angles. Sitting on a wall in a gallery, say if they exist in a gallery space or on a white wall, that actually the wall becomes part of the work, So these are submerging, emerging, almost tomb-like. Part of why I make them is to make them part of the wall. They are meant to sit on a wall. Then the wall becomes part of the work. That's what I'm hoping for. Part of the reason we moved to Hastings when I was a child is that my dad got a job at Dungeness Power Station, so he was a welder. So which was always a bit strange for me growing up, because we were going on C&D marches at the weekend, and then during the week my dad was going off to work at Dungeness Power Station. And possibly around the same sort of time as moving down at that age, so sort of 6, 7, I saw the film Quatermass 2, which in that film, so we're invaded by aliens who take over the power station for their nefarious means, and people are possessed by the aliens, and so they go to work and they go home, they have no emotions. So that was, yeah, that's why I've never trusted my dad and his motives. So yeah, so it's that sense of what's going on beneath. Yeah, as an artist, you want your work to be something that someone can live with for a long time, and how your ideas about what you're seeing can develop as well, and how they can change. I mean, that's for me the work, the paintings and the art that I'm very much drawn to is something that I can sit with for a long time, and then you can go away and you come back and you start seeing new stuff. Your mind, the artwork might take your imagination off into some other direction.